You ever have one of those mornings where you walk into the shop and the air just smells like ambition and maybe a little bit of scorched walnut because you forgot to tighten the fence yesterday?
Ambition is a strong word for what happens in here at 6 o'clock a.m. Tiger. Usually, it's just you staring at a pile of sawdust like it's going to bargain with you.
It's an honest relationship. But look, it's Tuesday, March 31st, 2026, and the world is moving faster than a router bit in pine. We've got a lot to chew on today. From Swiss-type machines that make my hands look like giant hams, to the terrifying reality of invisible electricity.
And we're talking about the maker mogul life. Because apparently, everyone wants a $60 ceramic mug now, and I need to know if I'm in the wrong profession.
Well, before you start throwing clay, we got to talk about the big league stuff. HCL CamWorks just dropped their 2026 update, and they've gone all in on Swiss-type functionality. Now, for the folks who aren't neck deep in chips every day, Swiss-type machining is like watching a tiny robotic watchmaker on speed. Everything is synchronized, the main spindle, the tool posts. It's moving in a dance that used to require a PhD and a prayer to program.
I've seen the videos. It's the one where the metal moves through the guide bush, right? It looks like a mechanical pencil on steroids.
Exactly, it's for the small, high-precision stuff. In the old days, trying to program that sync manually felt like trying to pat your head, rub your stomach, and recite the alphabet backward while riding a unicycle. This new update basically hands you a GPS for the whole process. And it's not just tech for tech's sake. Van Am out in Missouri just dumped $1.5 million into expanding their shop. When the big players start buying more floor space and heavier iron, that's a heartbeat check for the whole industry. The trades aren't just holding steady, they're stretching their legs.
It's funny you mentioned stretching because the new electrical contractor report says the same thing. Electricians aren't just the wire and pliers crew anymore. They're using 3D printers on site now.
Imagine that. Back when I started, if you needed a custom bracket, you beat a piece of scrap metal into submission with a 5-pound mallet until it cooperated. Now these kids are clicking print and grabbing a coffee while the machine builds the solution from scratch.
It's cool, but it makes me wonder if they're losing the fundamentals. You saw that piece by Jim Phillips about absence of voltage? He's asking the heavy question. Just because the fancy sensor says it's dead, do you trust it with your life?
Absolutely not. Never. Look, I've had my bells rung by a 110-volt circuit that I thought was cold, and it felt like a kick from a mule that had a personal grudge against me. These new automated sensors are slick, don't get me wrong. But relying on a light bulb to tell you you won't die is a gamble I don't like.
So what's the move? You're always talking about your 3-step dance or whatever.
It's the live dead live test. It's the holy grail of not ending up as a cautionary tale. You test your meter on a known live circuit to make sure the tool actually works. Then you test the circuit you're working on. Then, and this is the part people skip because they're in a hurry to get to lunch, you test your meter on that live circuit again.
To make sure the meter didn't die in the middle of the second test?
Exactly. If your meter's battery gives up the ghost right before you touch a hot wire, you're going to have a very bright, very short afternoon. It's about not letting the tech do the thinking for you. Use the tool, but keep your brain in the driver's seat.
Okay, let's pivot from not dying to making a living. I'm looking at these 2026 Etsy trends. Functional home aesthetics is the buzzword of the year. People are paying $60 for a handmade mug. Tiger, I've seen your coffee cup. It's a chipped plastic thing from a gas station. Why are people suddenly obsessed with expensive bowls?
Because in a world where everything is made by a giant injection molding machine in a factory 3,000 miles away, holding something that still has the thumbprints of the maker on it, that feels like a luxury. It's not a mug, it's a story you can drink out of.
But $60 for a planter? How do you actually scale that without losing your mind?
It's the maker mogul shift. You stop saying I make mugs and you start saying I solve a design problem for your morning ritual. If you want to make actual money in 2026, you can't just be a generalist. If you sell jewelry, you're competing with a billion people. But if you sell architectural, reclaimed copper earrings, you're the only person in the room. You niche down until the walls touch your shoulders.
I noticed a lot of these successful makers are doing a hybrid thing now too. Selling the physical item, but also selling the digital plans.
That's the passive side of the shop. You build a beautiful dining table once, you sell it for $3,000. Great. But then you sell the PDF plans for $20 to 500 people who want to try to build it. That's the money that keeps the lights on while you're waiting for finish to dry. It's about working once and getting paid twice.
Speaking of working once, let's talk about these DIY projects. Jay is finally laying down the Cali decking on that mega deck of his. I feel like he's been talking about this deck since the Reagan administration.
Building a deck that size is a marathon, not a sprint. People see the pretty boards on top and think that's the work. But the soul of a deck is in the flashing and the joist prep. If you mess up the waterproofing on those joists, you're just building a giant wooden rot sandwich that'll collapse in 10 years. Jay's being meticulous, and it's going to pay off when his grandkids are still eating burgers on that thing.
And then you've got the folks on YouTube doing shop finish work. Baseboards in a workshop? Isn't that like putting a tuxedo on a pig?
Hey now, I take offense to that. I've got trim in here. Look, finishing your shop is the smartest way to practice your miter cuts. If you mess up a 45-degree corner in your living room, your spouse is going to see it every time they sit on the couch for the next 20 years. It's a permanent monument to your failure.
Wow, no pressure.
But in the shop, if there's a gap in the casing around the door, who cares? You fill it with a little caulk or just let the sawdust fill it in naturally. It's low-stakes training. Plus, when your shop looks like a place where a professional works, you tend to do more professional work. It changes your headspace, you stop being a guy with some tools, and you start being a craftsman.
So, what's the takeaway for the day? Because we went from high-tech Swiss spindles to don't trust the electricity to put baseboards in your garage.
It's all the same thing, Alex. It's about precision. Whether you're programming a CNC machine to within a thousandth of an inch, or you're triple checking a circuit so you can go home to your family, or you're just making sure a miter joint is tight, it's about giving a damn.
Even if it's just a $60 mug.
Especially then. If someone's giving you their hard-earned money for something you made, you owe them your best. The technology changes, the printers get faster, the software gets smarter, but the heart behind the tool, that hasn't changed since the first guy figured out how to sharpen a rock.
That's a good place to leave it. Go check out the blog for the full breakdown and the links to those cam updates.
Get out of the house, get into the shop, and for heaven's sake, test your meter. See you next time.